Hi there, everybody. I hope you're doing well. I'm coming along. I had my first cataract surgery. Yes, 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 on this eye. And I'm going to try and see if I can take these things off and see what happens. The vision is, I don't want to say come and go, but it gets better at times and then go ways, probably because I have to put drops in during the day and it sort of changes things. But I can see an improvement. And I'm actually thinking, it's been a long time since I've thought I could get rid of these readers and actually read the card with my quote on it. I may still need to use the card, but we'll try it. Okay. I was thinking of the idea that we're beginning February, past the New Year's resolutions part, and people are probably somewhat berating themselves for not being able to get started. You don't need my ceiling there. Okay. Um, I want to talk something about, well, let me give you the quote first. This one comes from Maya Angelou, who's a poet and said several other things. But the quote basically is do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. Okay? Do the best you can until you know better. And when you know better, do better. It somewhat makes sense, right? You only can do so well based on the knowledge that you have, right? The thing about it is, and this is where hindsight bias comes in, is we have a tendency to look back at what happened and say, oh, I should have done this. Because we get this idea that at point in time, let's just say, okay, something happened on, let's just say, the 5th of January, and you made a decision, and maybe you didn't like the way the decision came out. So now you're looking back and said, I should have known better. I should have done it. It's like, when you made that decision on the 5th of January, you made the decision based on what you knew and what you felt and everything that was going on at that point in time. Since then, you've learned a lot of things. For one thing, you learned what happened because of the decision. So you decided you were going to go right. And then afterwards, you discovered that maybe you should have gone left. All right, that's nice. But now, today, you realize that going right might not have been necessarily the best decision. Except you didn't know that on the 5th of January. You're berating yourself for knowing things that you know today that you didn't know then. That's called hindsight bias in a nutshell. Your hindsight, you're looking back at what you have learned, thinking that you knew all of that information at that point in time. I should have known. I know this. Why didn't I do this? Then we get into sort of like touchy things. Yeah, maybe you knew something, but that doesn't necessarily mean that at that specific point in time, again, in my example, on the 5th of January, that all of that material came together in your head at that point in time so that everything fit. You were going on the information and the knowledge and the emotions you had on the 5th of January. You may have a piece of information that might have made a difference, but it didn't come to you on the 5th of January. It was out in left field someplace. It happens to all of us. It cannot. I don't know if that anybody. Well, okay. Let me put it this way: there might be somebody, someplace in the whole entire world that can remember all of that stuff, but I doubt it. So the majority of us can't remember everything that we know all the time at every single given moment in time. We are biased in the sense of how we feel that day, what's going on, the time frames we've got, what's happened before, what we're going to do the next day, etc. So that when you're thinking in terms of February and say, oh, gee, I screwed up January, what can I do? And messed up my resolutions already, and I'm no good, and I've failed them again. You're looking at the decisions you've made based on what you know now, not what you know then, or what you knew then, rather. Does that make sense? You can't. Now, the one thing I want you to remember here, clearly, those of you who are parents, think in terms of your children. Those of you who are friends or anybody or have ever told somebody, when somebody comes up and tells you that, oh, gee, I should have known better, and you let them know that, oh, no, 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 don't worry about it. You couldn't have known that, etc. Why aren't you doing that to yourself? So if you're going to be able to tell us, but let's just say, a child comes up and says, I should have done this, and the parent says, you didn't know better. You're still growing. You don't know the outcome of everything. You couldn't have known that. So just, relax, and you did the best you can with what you knew at the time. You've probably said that to somebody, whether it was a child or a friend or an employee or somebody else. The question is why don't you do it to yourself? Okay? Because again, think in terms, if you want the official term, think in terms of hindsight bias. Go look it up. You don't trust me. Because what you're doing is paying attention to knowledge that you've got today that you did not have at the time you made that decision. Because the thing that you're forgetting, even if you, let's say you knew a formula and you forgot the formula when you were doing whatever, you didn't know the formula at the moment you made the decision. It was off in left field, having a vacation or maybe having a, winter's nap or something like that. We can't keep everything in our heads all the time. So that you're only pulling the information that you had at the decision you made, that at the moment you made that decision. So don't start berating yourself and say, well, I should have known better. And it's like, well, okay, but at that moment, what was going through your head? You did the best you can. Okay? So think about that. Now that as you are going forward, as it says, again, do the best you can until you know better. Then when you know better, do better. So now you're a few days past that January 5th decision, and you decided whether or not you want to continue in that direction or not, or make some other choices. Think in terms of where you want to go. So at any particular moment in time, when you do make a decision, and we make decisions all the time, how many decisions do you make during the course of the day? Even from the moment of, do I hit the snooze alarm? Do I take another cup of coffee? Do I have an extra helping of breakfast? Whatever. You're making decisions all the time. So that once you've made a few decisions, and at the end of the day, the end of the week, whatever it is that your time frame that you're looking at, are those decisions getting you where you want to go? And if not, start thinking in terms of what you know and how you can make some different decisions. In other words, take what you know, think about it, and make better decisions. Consider where you want to go, where you have been, what you've got, and go on with that. But don't beat yourself up, because you're not going to be able to accomplish the task, the goals you want, if you keep beating yourself up, because then you're going to start saying, okay, I can't do anything, and bat yourself up. And at that rate, you're going to be afraid to make any decisions and not going to go anywhere. So maybe you're a student and you didn't do well in a class last term. So what do you think went wrong? What happened? Was it something that you could have changed and done differently? And if not, could you set something up for this term to keep that from happening again? If it was something that you did at work, was there something that you could have changed to keep that from happening again? What do you do now? How can you do better this week? How can you do better today? And all we're looking for is just a little itty bitty bit of doing better. Because if you do a little bitty bit every day, you'll ultimately get better. Again, think in terms of weight or growth. I mean, children grow. They're growing. Little children are growing constantly. You generally don't see them grow because you have to wait for they get to what, half an inch or something before you can see it, but they're continuously growing. You may be continuously gaining weight, but you're not necessarily going to know it unless you've got a really, really, really good scale. So that we keep going up and making those changes, and so you don't necessarily see all those changes. So if you just keep gaining a little bit better each day, sooner or later you'll be surprised at how much you've accomplished. Think about it. It's probably happened in your life. If you've lost a lot of weight, you may not necessarily have seen it on a day-to-day basis, but ultimately you might have lost the weight. If you were studying something and thought, I'm never going to get it done, sooner or later you got it done. So think in terms of how you're going to do better today, and then how you're going to do better tomorrow, and how you're going to do better a little bit each day for the rest of the week. And, maybe even think about taking that New Year's resolution that you sort of already tossed by and say, okay, can I rephrase this? What have I learned? How can I change this? And work on maybe just one small segment of that to improve it, to keep going, so that maybe you accomplish that, but not necessarily in the way you originally intended it, way back when in the beginning of January. Does this make sense? I hope so. So I do want to talk a little bit about habits, and we'll talk about that ongoing for this particular year. But again, if you could just begin to think in terms of, as you progress, you learn more, You become better at whatever it is you're doing, even though you don't necessarily see those incremental improvements, you do get better at it. Um, think riding a bike, swimming, whatever, walking, watch a baby walk. If you happen to have a baby floating around, or try and remember the last time you saw babies, they struggle and they do incrementally better. And sooner or later, one day they get up and they walk. You did that when you rode your bike. So the same thing goes along with, increasing your habits and your skills to get anything done. Okay. Does this make sense? I hope so. If not, let me know and I'll try and explain it again. But I hope try and explain it again. It's probably not a really good statement, again, considering what I just said. If you let me know, so let's see if I can practice what I preach here. Let me know if it didn't make sense. Let me know why it didn't make sense. And I'll learn from your comments and give you a better explanation the next time. How's that one? Okay. So you have a good week. Give some thought to it. And there goes Penny. You can see her back. She just did something outside, so she's got to go. You might, yeah, she's coming out. There she goes. So this is time for me to say bye, and we'll chat with you later. Take care. Have a good week.